A vote on the Enbridge agreement questions and answers. Need for the petition to recall the vote on the Enbridge agreement.
The Red Lake Nation has to have this petition for the protection of future generations, the preservation of our environment, and for the strength of our homeland and its sovereignty.
And responsibilities as a petitioner.
The duties of a petitioner are to gather signatures from band members and to convey the reasons for the petition and the solutions to the problem.
On January 12, 2016 with the Red Lake Tribal Council.
The meeting was good and respectful. Everyone had a chance to speak and the people listened to one another. The end result was that the council was still in agreement with the vote on the Enbridge agreement.
Similarities in the Red Lake situation that resembles the Cabell case.
Yes, these three cases are very similar to the Cabell case. We have two sets of governments who have allowed and gave the approval of trespass on the Red Lake Trust Land. The federal government mismanaged the Red Lake Trust Land, and the state was stamping its approval right on
it. In the Cabell case versus Red Lake's case?
The difference between the Cabell case and Red Lake's case is that the federal government said there were too many people involved in order to estimate the accurate amount of money that is owed. There are only 3 entities that are involved in Red Lake's case, and we know how much money flowed through our land.
Or at fault for the trespass on Red Lake's trust land.
First is the federal government. They have mismanaged our trust land and gave approval to Enbridge to build the pipelines. The second is the Minnesota state government. They knowingly approved expansions of the pipeline and the pipeline routes that involved our trust land. Third and final is Enbridge. As the main defendant in this case, they are actually the company who is in trespass. These 3 had involvement and took part in the creation of this trespass.
Strategies that will be used in having a successful lawsuit against the federal government and the state government.
The federal government mismanaged our land for 67 years and should have to pay reconciliation fees. The state government wrongfully went into agreements or approvals with Enbridge, knowing that the pipelines flowed through Red Lake Trust Land.
The strategies that will be used in having a successful lawsuit against Enbridge.
We can base it on the amount of money that flowed through our land, and that amount would equal around $16 billion. We had no agreement with Enbridge on the terms of agreement. We should receive a percentage of the total flowage of oil.
If Enbridge does not remove the pipelines, or if they are removed.
If they keep the pipelines on the trust land, they should have to pay a future use payment for 67 years and the past trespass payment. If they remove the pipelines, they will only have to pay the trespass for 67 years. Either way, Enbridge should have to remove all pipelines that are not in use.
Some of the possible outcomes that Red Lake band members can expect.
Well, we as a sovereign nation have already won against Enbridge and will continue to win on our terms. We will win against the federal government and have a settlement with them. We will win against the state government. They knowingly and wrongfully approved the continued trespass.
Important for the people to be heard on this issue.
It is very important that the whole issue gets criticized from all angles. This is the way we'll develop the best solution as a nation. All Red Lake band members should speak about this issue freely without judgment of their opinion. Red Lake band members should post their thoughts and ideas to the Recall the Vote on the Enbridge Agreement Facebook page.
It's important that Enbridge have an environmental protection plan in place.
Enbridge has got to have some type of plan regardless of the outcome of the situation. And the Red Lake Nation is entitled to know this plan and possibly have input on this plan.
It's important to protect and fight for the environment of the future generations.
It is very important that we as Indigenous people remain the protectors of the land. That is the way of our people from all over Turtle Island. If we do not look after the land, then our future generations will suffer the consequences and take on the burden that we could have prevented in our generation.
Nation and the international communities have in common.
Enbridge exists internationally, and so do Indigenous people. It just so happens to be that Enbridge wants to run their oil pipelines through our lands. We all have the same problem in common. Enbridge and other oil companies that routinely utilize Indigenous lands for their own well-being.
For the international level.
We should gather an international petition for Indigenous land rights of Turtle Island, which state that the companies who deal with hazardous materials or their type of work could have a negative impact on the environment should have to do so under the jurisdiction of the Indigenous people of that land. Eventually, this could become an international law. We as Indigenous people have ceded our lands for the betterment of the United States citizens and all other colonial powers at the time. We deserve the right to protect our homelands from any outside forces.
Which have less of a negative environmental impact.
Enbridge could navigate their pipelines in a way that have zero environmental impact on tribal lands. Enbridge could run all of their pipelines through these zero impact areas. So there would be a less of an environmental impact on federal, state, and private lands also.
The Red Lake band members view this issue.
I think as a tribe, we are not used to overturning decisions made by the tribal council. So this is a new realm for us as a nation, and is it time to grow as a nation. I'm also very proud of the Red Lake tribal employees who are doing the work and creating a better future for our nation. We are definitely moving in the right direction, and I see our nation being very strong. We cannot allow our sovereignty and our livelihood be disrupted by encroaching oil companies. We have to remain as we always been, resilient to submission and controlled by outside forces.
Lake trust land location so vital to Enbridge.
There is no clear way to answer why our trust land location is so important to Enbridge. Enbridge has opted out of a smaller amount of money to move the pipelines and gave us what was said to be more money than what it would cost to move the pipelines. I I think Enbridge wants and needs our trust land passageway for reasons we may never know. This agreement has to end on our terms, or we should not be dealing with Enbridge. And if this is the case, we should assert our sovereignty.
The agreement affect the Red Lake tribe and its sovereignty.
This agreement between Red Lake and Enbridge weakens our sovereignty and the sovereignty for nations throughout Turtle Island. If we allow the Enbridge Oil Company to win on their terms, then that opens the door to other billion-dollar industries. If we want to protect our lands, the environment, our sovereignty as a nation, then we must think and act as an Anishinaabe people. And Red Lake band members help support the recall the vote on the Enbridge Agreement petition.
1. Donate stamps. Mail all stamps to P.O. Box number 6492, Minneapolis, Minnesota 55406. 2. Donate envelopes. Mail all envelopes to P.O. Box number 6492, Minneapolis, Minnesota 55406. And 3. Watch the 2 videos on the Recall the Vote Facebook page and read the article Enbridge, the Takeover of Red Lake Land, written by Robert Ajardly about Enbridge issue. All 3 of these are pinned to the top of the Recall the Vote Enbridge Agreement Facebook page. 4. Like the Recall the Vote on Enbridge Agreement Facebook page. 5. Donate or ask other people to donate money to the GoFundMe account we have set up. And last one, 6. Write your thoughts, ideas on the Recall the Vote Enbridge Agreement Facebook page or inbox a message to the Facebook page. And miigwech. Thank you.